Welcome to today's story, The Unseen Passage, generated by StoryWave.ai, March 2024. Please tap that like button, share, and subscribe for more. Chapter 1, Whispers in the Walls. The moment I crossed the threshold of the time-worn abode tucked away in the foothills of Colorado, a shiver traced the length of my spine, not from the chill of the mountain air, but from something uncanny that lingered within these walls. I, Emily Hartford, a creature of logic and code, had no business with the eerie, yet here I was, about to call this relic my home. The house was an inheritance, a peculiar bequest from a great aunt I scarcely remembered. It stood resolute against time's assault, its Victorian architecture a bold demarcation to the modern designs I was accustomed to. As I ventured through its rooms, the floorboards creaked beneath my steps, echoing through the corridors like whispers of a bygone era. I set my suitcase down and observed the parlor. Once opulent, now it bore the patina of neglect. The wallpaper, a tapestry of faded florals, whispered tales of its past splendor. As evening crept in, the setting sun cast a golden hue through the stained glass windows, bathing the room in a warm, if not somewhat ghostly light. That first night, as I lay in the antiquated brass bed, the silence of the house was almost suffocating. The walls seemed to breathe with a rhythm not their own, and then the whispers started. Soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to seep from the very woodwork. I told myself it was just the wind or the settling of an old structure, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, listened to, by unseen eyes. The following morning, I found myself in the town's historical archive, driven by a newfound compulsion to unearth the history of my peculiar new residence. The archivist, a woman of advanced years with an encyclopedic knowledge of the town's lore, provided me with clippings and photographs that painted a picture of the Woodrow family, the original occupants. Abigail Woodrow, a name that stood out among the faded ink, was said to be the lady of the house, a figure both admired and whispered about in soft voices. The more I read, the more I felt a connection to this woman, as if her presence permeated the very fibers of the house. Determined to restore the house to its former glory, I began by stripping away the layers of dust and grime that time had deposited. Each room held its secrets, from the locket I found hidden beneath a loose floorboard to the initials carved discreetly into the mantel. The house was a puzzle, and I was intent on solving it. As days turned to weeks, my skepticism wavered. Objects would move, doors would close on their own, and at night, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to be guiding me, leading me to hidden nooks and crannies I had yet to explore. It was during one such nocturnal wandering that I discovered a hidden compartment behind the library's bookshelf, revealing a trove of Abigail's personal diaries. My hands trembled as I opened the worn leather covers. The ink had faded, but the words that emerged were clear, penned with a resolve that transcended time. Abigail spoke of her own encounters with the inexplicable, her words mirroring my own experiences. It was as though the house served as a bridge between her world and mine, a vessel for a journey beyond the constraints of time. With each page turned, I felt a growing sense of purpose. This house, with its whispers and secrets, was not just a place of haunting, but of connection. As I delved deeper into its mysteries, I was embarking on an odyssey that would challenge the very fabric of reality and lead me to truths that lay hidden, waiting to be brought to light by those willing to listen to the whispers in the walls. Chapter 2, Echoes of the Past. The morning sun spilled its golden treasure across the dusty floorboards of the house, igniting motes of dust into a dance of history. I stood in the heart of this ancient dwelling, feeling the weight of the years in the air around me. With the old diary of Abigail Woodrow, the former lady of this manor, clutched in my hands, I felt like I was holding a key to a long-sealed vault. The leather was cracked and worn, the pages yellowed with age, but the writing still held the vibrancy of life. As I flipped through the pages, a breeze whispered through the room, and I could almost hear the rustling of petticoats. I settled into the creaking embrace of a rocking chair near the window, the diary resting on my lap. It felt natural to be here, in the light of the new day, delving into the past. I began to read aloud, my voice finding strength in the silence. June 15th, 1895. The house is alive with the whispers of the wind, I read, my voice echoing in the empty room. I fear that my senses are betraying me, for I hear voices where there should be none, and see figures in the corner of my vision. The words were a mirror to my own thoughts. As I continued, the air grew thick with the scent of old roses and the faint hint of candle wax. I paused, my heart thumping against my ribs. Was it my imagination, or was there a soft sigh from across the room? Abigail, I called out, my voice a mixture of trepidation and disbelief. Are you here? There was a silence, and then, as if carried on the light from the window, a voice replied, soft yet clear. Yes, Emily, I am here. I stood abruptly, my eyes searching the corners of the room. The voice had been so real, so present. I had to remind myself to breathe. How is this possible? I asked, my skepticism warring with the evidence of my senses. The house, it holds memories, emotions, the voice of Abigail answered, her tone tinged with the same curiosity that had always driven me. It binds us across the expanse of years. I sank back down into the chair, my mind a whirlwind of questions. Why me? Why are you reaching out to me? You are the keeper of the house now. Abigail's voice was closer now, enveloping me in a warmth that defied logic. And you found my diary. Through it, we can share our stories, learn from one another. I nodded, my eyes fixed on the diary. It was as if the pages had become a conduit, a bridge through time. What do you want to show me, Abigail? Look to the past, and you'll understand the future, she whispered, the presence fading like the last note of a song. I spent the rest of the day poring over the diary, Abigail's words a guiding light. The visions and voices grew more vivid with each passing hour, the line between her time and mine blurring until it seemed as though we lived side by side. As night fell, I could no longer deny the reality of the connection. Abigail's world was reaching out to mine, offering glimpses of a life intertwined with the very essence of the house. I knew then that I was on a journey beyond the physical, a voyage through the unseen passage of time and memory. With each entry I read, the pieces of a grand puzzle began to fall into place, and I understood that this was just the beginning. Abigail and I were bound by more than just the house. We were kindred spirits, travelers on a path that defied explanation. And as I closed the diary for the night, I realized that I was no longer afraid. I was part of the echoes of the past, and they were a part of me. Chapter 3. The window opens. The dawn had barely begun to paint the sky with its early blush when I awoke to a peculiar sensation, like the gentle tug of an unseen thread connecting me to an invisible point in the vastness of time. The house lay quiet around me, but I could feel the anticipation in the air, as if it too was holding its breath for the marvel that was to unfold. I made my way downstairs, the wood underfoot groaning softly with each step. The morning light cast long shadows across the hallway, creating a mosaic of light and darkness on the walls. As I entered the parlor, the scent of old books and memories lingered in the air. I glanced towards the mantel where I had placed Abigail's diary the night before. It lay there, innocuous, yet I could sense the power it held within its pages. Abigail? I called out tentatively, my voice a lone note in the stillness. After a moment, her voice returned to me, a whisper that seemed to materialize from the very heart of the house. I am here, Emily. I feel the walls thinning between us. I approached the window, its glass wavy with age, distorting the view of the world outside. What is happening to us, Abigail? How can we be speaking like this? Our lives are woven together by the fabric of this house, she replied, her voice growing stronger. It's like a window in time has opened, allowing us to converse across the centuries. I pressed my hand against the cool glass, the sensation making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Can you see me, Abigail? I see glimpses, shadows, and light, she answered, her tone filled with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. Tell me, what is the world like in your time? I hesitated, not sure where to start. It's different. There are machines that can do incredible things, devices that connect us with people around the world, but there's also a lot of noise, a lot of distractions. I can hardly imagine such things, she murmured. In my time, life is simpler, yet constrained. Women have few freedoms. Our lives are determined by the men we are bound to. A pang of sadness touched me as I listened to her words. We were separated by more than just years. Our entire ways of life were worlds apart. And what about you, Abigail? What is your life like? I asked, eager to learn more about her existence. I spend my days tending to the house, to my family, she began, her voice tinged with longing. But I yearn for more, for knowledge, for adventure. I feel trapped at times, caged by the expectations of this era. As we exchanged stories, the room around me seemed to pulse with energy, the air vibrating with the power of our connection. Then, something peculiar happened. The candlestick on the mantel moved, just an inch, but enough to draw my attention. I recalled reading about a similar incident in Abigail's diary. Abigail, did you move that candlestick? I questioned, my heart racing with the implications. I did not, but I wrote of such happenings in my diary, she confirmed. It seems our connection is influencing more than just our ability to communicate. The realization that our bond was manifesting in physical ways was both thrilling and terrifying. We were pioneers on an incredible journey, charting a course through the unknown waters of time. As the morning wore on, our conversation continued, each of us sharing details of our lives, finding solace and understanding in the presence of the other. The house, once a place of solitude, had become a nexus of connection, a vessel for a journey that defied all logic. And as the light shifted, casting new patterns on the walls, I knew that this was just the beginning. The window between our worlds had opened, and together, Abigail and I were stepping through it, ready to embrace the unbelievable truth of our intertwined destinies. Chapter 4: Resonance of Eras. The first glint of morning light peeked through the curtains, casting a geometric pattern on the wooden floor of the old house. In the stillness of the dawn, I, Emily, found my thoughts turning once again to the enigma that had become my daily reality, the voice from the past that had whispered into my life, Abigail. I tiptoed down the staircase, careful not to disturb the silence that enveloped the house like a cocoon. The parlor was bathed in the soft glow of the early sun, the dust particles floating in the air like tiny, suspended treasures. I settled into the familiar creases of the armchair, my laptop resting on my knees, a stark contrast to the antiquated surroundings. Abigail, I whispered, half in hope, half in a ritual I had come to cherish. Are you there? Her response came, a gentle ripple in the quietude of the room. I am here, Emily. It feels like our worlds are drawing closer with each passing moment. I nodded, though I knew she couldn't see the gesture. We need to be careful. If others were to discover our connection. Fear not, Abigail interjected, her tone reassuring. My world is not privy to our conversations. To them, I am simply a woman of solitude, often lost in thought. I smiled at her words, the image of a thoughtful, introspective Abigail painting itself in my mind. I've been trying to make sense of our situation, to rationalize it with science and logic. But I'm coming up empty. Our bond defies the bounds of your science, Emily, she said, a hint of playfulness in her tone. It is something more wondrous, more profound. I couldn't help but agree. There was a beauty in the mystery, in the resonance between our eras that connected us. Tell me something about your day, Abigail. Anything that comes to mind. She seemed to ponder for a moment before answering. Today I wandered through the garden, the petals of the roses still wet with dew. I watched a robin flit from branch to branch, its song a melody of the morning. I closed my eyes, letting her words paint a vivid picture in my mind. That sounds lovely. My day is just beginning, but I plan to explore the attic. There might be more clues there, more pieces to this puzzle. The attic, Abigail echoed, her voice tinged with curiosity. Be cautious, Emily. It was always a place of many secrets. I felt a thrill of excitement at her warning. Secrets were what I craved, what drove me to unravel the threads of our connection. I will, and I'll tell you everything I find. As the day unfolded, I kept Abigail abreast of my discoveries. The attic was a treasure trove of artifacts, each one whispering echoes of the past. A faded photograph, a rusted key, a diary with its pages stuck together. Each item felt like a message from another time. Abigail listened intently, her interest palpable even across the centuries. You bring my world to life, Emily. It is as though I am discovering it all over again through your eyes. And you do the same for me, I replied, a sense of camaraderie strengthening our bond. It's as if we're both pioneers, venturing into uncharted territory. The hours slipped by, marked by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Our exchange continued, a melding of past and present that defied explanation. With every word, every shared experience, the connection between us grew, a bridge spanning the gap of time. As night fell, and I finally closed my laptop, the reality of what was occurring between us settled in. Abigail and I were not just communicating. We were influencing each other's realities in subtle, yet profound ways. Our journey was just beginning, and I knew that the threshold of innovation we were crossing would lead us to truths both incredible and inspiring. Chapter 5, Temporal Echoes. Emily came a voice, faint, like the last note of a song fading into silence. It was Abigail, my unexpected companion from another time. Abigail, I replied, my voice steady despite the unease that knotted in my stomach. The connection seems weaker tonight, a pause stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears. I sense it too, she admitted. There's a storm here, a terrible one from many years ago. It's as if the thunder is echoing through time itself. I frowned, trying to recall any mention of a storm in the history books or the local lore I had researched. Could it be affecting our window? It's possible. Abigail's voice wavered, a clear sign of her distress. I'm afraid, Emily, afraid that we may lose this thread that connects us. The thought chilled me to the bone. Our conversations had become the highlight of my days, a beamer of friendship in the solitude of the house. We can't let that happen, I said firmly. There has to be something we can do. Perhaps, she sounded unsure. When the storm first hit, the family took shelter in the cellar. I remember my father's words, as long as we're together, we can weather any storm. I nodded, clinging to her words. Then let's stick together, Abigail, even if it's just like this. As we talked, the air around me grew colder, and the faint scent of ozone filled the parlor. I shivered, pulling the blanket tighter around my shoulders. Emily, something peculiar just happened here. Abigail's tone was urgent. The clock in the hallway, it's running backwards. I stood, my heart racing as I glanced at my own modern clock. It was impossible, yet the digital numbers were indeed moving in reverse. Abigail, our connection, it's doing something to time itself, I said, a mix of awe and dread in my voice. The realization dawned on us both. Our interactions, our bond, it wasn't just a window. It was a force capable of bending the fabric of time. We must tread carefully, Abigail cautioned. Such power, it's both wondrous and terrifying. I paced the room, my mind racing with possibilities. This house, your diary, they're all pieces of a larger puzzle. Maybe, just maybe, we're meant to find a way to control this. We must keep this a secret, Emily, she insisted. If others were to learn of this, I know, I interrupted. The consequences could be catastrophic. Our conversation continued into the night, each of us voicing our hopes and fears. The connection between us, a tenuous thread that held strong against the strain of the temporal storm. By the time I retired to bed, the digital clock had righted itself, and the whispers of the past had settled into a comforting murmur. But the events of the evening had left their mark. Abigail and I had discovered a power beyond our understanding, a resonance that could echo through the ages. And as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden within the walls of the house, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to listen to the temporal echoes. Chapter 6, Fraying Edges. Abigail, I said, my voice a mix of determination and concern. The window's acting up again, isn't it? Across the span of centuries, her response came through, tinged with static, as if she were speaking from a great distance. Yes, Emily, it's like the fabric of time is fraying at the edges. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under my weight. The room was filled with the quiet hum of the house settling, a sound I had come to know well. We need to figure this out, and fast. There are ripples now, changes that I can see happening right before my eyes. Tell me what you see, Abigail's voice urged, her words a flare in the uncertain gloom. I glanced around, taking in the parlor with its grand, faded wallpaper and the heavy drapes that framed the large windows. Just now, the portrait over the fireplace. It changed. The man in the picture, I swear he was wearing a different coat yesterday. Good heavens, she murmured, my father's portrait? But how could your actions affect something so permanent? I stood, pacing the length of the rug, the patterns swirling under my feet. I don't know, but it's not just the portrait. It's small things, books rearranging themselves on shelves, doors I remember painting that are suddenly peeling. It's as if our bond is rewriting history in tiny ways. Abigail was silent for a moment, her presence a comforting warmth despite the peculiarity of our situation. Perhaps it's my influence. The things I've done in the past, they might be reaching out to you, changing your restoration efforts. I stopped in my tracks, the idea taking root. That could be it. Maybe our communication isn't just a one-way street. Maybe it's more like an echo, bouncing back and forth and altering things with each pass. The thought was both exhilarating and frightening. If our bond could change the past, what else might be possible? What other effects could our interactions have on the fabric of time? We must approach this with care, Emily. If we're not mindful, we could unravel more than just the edges, Abigail cautioned, her voice firm. I know, I agreed. We'll be cautious. But this could be the key to understanding the mechanics of our bond, maybe even controlling it. Our conversation stretched on, a lengthy exchange of theories and observations. We spoke of the house's quirks, the way the wooden floors seemed to breathe, and the chandelier in the dining room swayed slightly, even without a breeze. As the sun climbed higher, casting beams of light that made the dust in the air dance, I could feel the weight of history pressing in on me. The connection with Abigail was more than just a link. It was a living thing, a bond that thrummed with the resonance of our shared experiences. The day waned, and the house settled into an uneasy quiet. The temporal ripples had ceased for the moment, but the sense of change lingered, a reminder that the window we had opened was more than just a passage. It was a threshold to untold possibilities. As I closed my laptop and prepared to retire for the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Abigail and I were on the cusp of something monumental. The fraying edges of our bond were not just a sign of instability, but a flare guiding us toward a deeper understanding of the voyage beyond the limits of time. And together, we would race to unravel its mysteries. Chapter 7, Shadow of Doubt. I had noticed the neighbors casting curious glances toward the Victorian mansion that I had come to call home. The odd occurrences that had become part of my daily life were not going unnoticed. Just yesterday, Mrs. Henderson from next door raised an eyebrow at the sight of the living room curtains, which seemed to change color from ivory to a soft rose hue without explanation. Emily, you've got to keep a lower profile, I muttered to myself, pulling the curtains closed a bit more firmly. That's when a knock came at the door, a rhythmic and insistent sound that made my heart skip a beat. I opened it to find Jack, the friendly but inquisitive man who lived a few houses down. He greeted me with a warm smile, but his eyes held a hint of concern. Morning, Emily. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I noticed some, peculiar things about your house lately, Jack said, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I forced a laugh, trying to keep the conversation light. Oh, you know these old houses, they have their quirks. Jack nodded, but didn't seem entirely convinced. Sure, but changing curtains and flickering lights seems a bit more than just quirks. I felt a trickle of cold sweat run down my back. Must be some faulty wiring. I've been meaning to look into it, I lied, hoping he'd buy the simple explanation. Let me know if you need help. I'm pretty handy with that sort of thing, he offered, his gaze lingering a bit longer than usual. Thanks, I'll keep that in mind, I replied, my mind racing with the thought of keeping him away from the truth. After Jack left, I retreated to the safety of the parlor, where the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and secrets. I reached out, hoping to find solace in the familiar voice that had become my confidant. Abigail, are you there? I whispered into the stillness. Her voice came through, a soft echo in my mind. I am, Emily. Is something troubling you? I sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The neighbors are getting suspicious. And Jack, he's been kind, maybe even a bit interested in me, but I fear what he might think if he knew the truth. We must be cautious, Emily. Our connection is precious, but it cannot come to light. Abigail's voice was a mixture of wisdom and empathy. As the day unfolded, I found myself walking on eggshells, trying to act as normally as possible. Every creak and groan of the house made me jump, worried that it would attract unwanted attention. That evening, as I sat down to a solitary dinner, the chandelier above me began to sway gently, the crystal pendants tinkling like soft music. It was a soothing sound, but it filled me with dread. What if Jack or Mrs. Henderson saw? Abigail, can you control these things? I asked, staring up at the dancing lights. I'm not sure, Emily. Our bond is strong, but I don't fully understand its reach, she admitted. We spent hours discussing our dilemma, trying to untangle the web of time that connected us. It was clear that both of us were influencing the other's reality, but the extent and rules of this influence remained shrouded in mystery. As the night grew deep and the house settled into silence, my thoughts turned to Jack. His kind eyes and easy laugh had been a comfort during my time in the house, yet now they represented a risk I wasn't sure I could afford. Abigail's voice broke through my reverie. Be strong, Emily. We will find a way through this shadow of doubt. Her words were a balm to my fraying nerves. Together, we would confront the unknown, keeping the magic of our connection safe from prying eyes, even as we stood on the precipice of a breakthrough that could change everything. Chapter 8. Tangled Timelines. Abigail, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been reading through the town's archives again. There's something unnerving about the history of this place. From the shadows of the past, her response wove its way to me, tinged with a solemnity that immediately caught my attention. What have you found, Emily? I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on the yellowed pages of an old newspaper article. It's about the house, about a tragedy long forgotten. A family that lived here, after you, they vanished without a trace. The entire town was in disarray. Abigail's presence seemed to hover closer, her interest piqued. Vanished? But how? And why does this stir the waters of our connection? I ran my fingers over the brittle paper, the printed words seeming to pulse with an urgency that transcended time. I'm not sure, but I think it has something to do with us, with the window we've opened. Our conversations might be more powerful than we thought. A heavy silence filled the room as we both contemplated the implications. If our interactions could reach back and forth across the years, could we inadvertently alter the flow of events? I remember talk of a curse, Abigail said slowly, her words careful, measured. It was said that those who dwelled within these walls were bound by fate, their destinies entwined with the house itself. I shivered, despite the warmth of the room. A curse. That's just superstition, isn't it? Perhaps, she conceded, or perhaps it's a piece of the puzzle we've yet to understand. As the night deepened, we delved into the shared enigma of our existence, the house around me creaking as if echoing our concerns. The article revealed that on a night much like this, under a shrouded moon, the family disappeared, leaving only a legacy of whispers and fear. We must tread carefully, Emily. If we're not mindful, we might find ourselves caught in the same web that claimed them, Abigail warned, her voice a warning of caution. I nodded, my grit hardening. We won't let that happen. We'll unravel this mystery together. The conversation that followed stretched into the early hours of the morning, a dance of words and theories as we pieced together the fragments of history. Abigail shared tales of her own time, of the people and the bonds they shared, and I listened intently, the threads of our lives becoming ever more entangled. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the windows, a startling revelation dawned on me. The neighbors, the kind-hearted Jack and inquisitive Mrs. Henderson, could they be descendants of the family that vanished? Was their lineage tied to the house, to us? Abigail, I think our connection is affecting more than just the house. It might be influencing the people around me, their histories, I said, a note of disbelief in my voice. The weight of our discovery hung in the air, a tangled knot of timelines and consequences that we had yet to fully comprehend. As I watched the sunrise, the light spilling into the room and chasing away the remnants of night, I knew that our journey had taken a crucial turn. Together, Abigail and I stood on the brink of understanding, ready to confront the unknown and untangle the timelines that bound us. Our voyage beyond the mere passage of years was a colloquy to the indomitable spirit of discovery, and we were its willing travelers, charting a course through the uncharted waters of time. Chapter 9, Fleeting Shadows. Abigail, I called into the silence, my voice a guidepost in the quietude of the house. Did you see it too? Her response was hesitant, a murmur that traveled across time to reach me. I did, Emily. The vision was as clear as day. The man, the one from the portrait, he was hiding something. Sinister. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, my mind grappling with the images that had invaded my sleep. The man from the vision was the house's original owner, a figure we had come to know through faded photographs and whispered legends, a man of stature and secrets. We need to talk about this, Abigail. These shared visions are beginning to take their toll, I said, a heaviness settling in my chest. I could feel her nodding, her presence a constant comfort despite the growing strain. Yes, Emily, the lines between our realities are blurring. It feels as though the house wants us to uncover the truth. The day was spent in the library, where the musty smell of old books filled the air, each tome a sentinel of knowledge standing tall on the wooden shelves. The light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting patterns on the floor that seemed to move with a life of their own. As I sifted through the history of the house, Jack's voice came from the doorway, tentative yet tinged with concern. Emily, you've been cooped up in here all day. Is everything all right? I glanced up at him, his features etched with worry. How could I explain the unexplainable? How could I tell him that the house we stood in was more than just brick and mortar, that it was a vessel carrying the whispers of the past? Everything's fine, Jack. Just got caught up in some research. I lied, offering him a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He stepped into the room, the floorboards creaking under his weight. You know, if there's anything you need, I'm here for you, right? His words were kind, his intentions pure, but the shadow of my secret lay between us, an invisible barrier that kept him at arm's length. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it, I said, turning back to the books, the answers I sought hidden within their pages. The conversation with Abigail resumed as the evening approached, the two of us exchanging long, detailed accounts of what we had seen in the visions. The house's original owner, a man shrouded in mystery, had left behind clues that only now were coming to light. Emily, the visions showed me the place where he hid it. Beneath the floorboards in the parlor, there's a space, a hidden compartment. Abigail's voice was urgent, pressing. My heart raced at the revelation. I'll look for it. If there's a secret to be found, we'll find it together. With Jack's concerned gaze upon me, I made an excuse to visit the parlor alone. The room was quiet, the air thick with anticipation. I knelt on the floor, my fingers tracing the edges of the boards until, at last, I found the loose one that Abigail had described. As I pried it open, a chill ran down my spine. Hidden within was a small, dust-covered box, its contents a mystery waiting to be unraveled. I could feel Abigail's excitement mirroring my own, our shared connection stronger than ever. The discovery of the box and its sinister implications would have to wait as Jack's footsteps approached once more. For now, the secret remained ours alone, a fleeting shadow that danced on the edge of understanding, urging us forward on our voyage beyond. Chapter 10. A moment out of time. A decision in your hands could ripple forward and disrupt everything I know. I spoke out loud, my gaze fixed on the delicate pattern of the teacup, a relic from a bygone era. From the past, Abigail's voice reached out, her words heavy with the weight of our shared predicament. Emily, I never intended for our discoveries to lead to this. If I had known, I cut her off, my tone even, yet firm. But you didn't know, Abby. We're in uncharted waters now. You made a choice, and it might erase the very essence of my being. I might not even be here if you... The silence that followed was thick with tension. The notion that a simple act on her part could unravel the fabric of my existence was a burden too large to bear alone. Abigail broke the silence, her voice a whisper of time. I cannot fathom the depth of our connection, how my actions could lead to your undoing. What can we do to mend the thread that binds us? I sighed, the reality of our situation pressing in. We must consider the consequences. Every action we take, every choice, it has the power to alter history. We're not just two souls communicating, we're custodians of time itself. The kitchen around me felt smaller, the walls closing in as the magnitude of our connection dawned on me. We were standing on the precipice of an ethical paradox, with the power to change the course of history in our hands. Emily, Abigail's voice was now tinged with urgency. There must be a way to right the wrongs, to ensure your existence is preserved. Tell me what to do. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking under my weight. It's not about telling you what to do. It's about understanding the implications of our actions. We're not just dealing with the past or the present. We're shaping the future. The conversation that followed was long and arduous, a back and forth of ideas and theories as we grappled with the moral implications of our bond. The decision Abigail had made in her time, a choice born of compassion or necessity, had the potential to wipe me from the ledger of history. "We must tread carefully," I said finally, a sense of tenacity settling over me. "Our knowledge of the future is a gift, but it's also a responsibility. We can't play with time as if it's a toy." Abigail's agreement was a soft echo in my mind. "We will find a balance, Emily. I promise you that." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the kitchen in a twilight glow, I knew that the decisions we made from this point forward would be etched into the very essence of time. The ethical paradoxes of our journey were not just puzzles to be solved, they were an earnest to the power of our actions and the delicate nature of existence. And so we continued our dialogue, a moment out of time, two souls connected by the unseen passage, striving to understand the vast tapestry of history that we were now part of. With every word, every shared thought, we wove the threads of the past and present into a future that was ours to shape. Chapter 11, Ripples in the Stream. "Abigail," I called out, my voice steady despite the unease that gnawed at me. "Are you feeling it too? This tension?" From the echoes of a distant past, her response was almost immediate, an evidence to the uncanny bridge that connected us. "Yes, Emily. It's as though the stream of time is brimming over, the ripples lapping at the banks of the present." I pondered her words, my gaze drifting to the window where the first light of dawn cast ghostly figures upon the glass. Figures that moved with purpose, oblivious to the centuries that stood between us. "Abigail," I saw them again, the apparitions. They're becoming more frequent, more vivid. "It's as if they're trying to tell us something," I confessed, the reality of the situation settling around me like a heavy cloak. Her tone was somber, a reflection of the gravity of our situation. "We're meddling with forces we barely comprehend, Emily. Each change in the past sends shockwaves, and now the community is taking notice." I stood, pacing the length of the parlor, my footsteps muffled by the ornate rug that adorned the floor. The Hendersons, they remember things differently now. Events that never happened, people they never met. It's causing confusion, concern. The air grew colder, a sure sign that Abigail's presence was near. "I fear what we have done, Emily. The temptation to right wrongs, to reshape my destiny, it's overwhelming. But at what cost?" Her words struck a chord, and I stopped in my tracks. The ethical paradox of our situation was a maze with no clear exit. To change one's fate was a power that beckoned with the sweet allure of possibility, yet it held the potential for untold consequences. "We must be cautious, Abby. We can't allow our desires to steer the course of history. The past is delicate, and we are but its custodians," I said, a resolve hardening within me. Our exchange grew into an elaborate dance of words, a lengthy discussion that spanned hours, as we grappled with the moral implications of our connection. The house, a silent witness to our quandary, seemed to hold its breath as we debated our next move. "Emily, we stand upon a precipice. One wrong step, and we may lose ourselves in the abyss of time," Abigail warned, her voice a signal of reason in the encroaching darkness. I nodded, though I knew she could not see. "We'll find a way to navigate these waters, to calm the ripples in the stream. We have to." The day waned and the community's whispers grew louder, a chorus of unease that echoed through the streets. As I finally retired for the night, the ghostly figures from the house's many lives watched in silence, a reminder that the past was not a plaything, but a tapestry woven with the threads of countless lives. Together, Abigail and I would face the ethical paradoxes of our journey, a voyage beyond the simple passage of time. We would strive to mend the fabric we had torn, to restore the balance and ensure the stream of history flowed unimpeded once more. Chapter 12, The Ethical Divide. "Emily," Abigail's voice reached out from the depths of yesteryears. "The window is wavering. We stand at a crossroads that will define the very essence of our worlds." I paced the length of the dimly lit hallway, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, my mind racing with the gravity of our situation. "I know, Abby. It's now or never. We must choose between what was meant to be and what is." The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and the whispered secrets of generations. I could almost see the echoes of the past, the fleeting shadows that had become my constant companions, urging me toward a verdict. We've seen what changes can do, the chaos it can cause, I continued, stopping to examine the portrait of the house's original owner, his eyes following my every move. But can we really just erase the life we've come to know, the bond we've formed? Abigail's response came with a note of desperation. To restore the timeline might mean losing this connection, losing the friendship that has become my solace in a world that feels increasingly alien. My heart ached at the thought, the idea of severing the extraordinary link that bridged the centuries. Yet if we don't, the fabric of time might unravel completely. The consequences are too vast to comprehend. In the study, I sat at the grand mahogany desk, its surface littered with notes and old photographs. The lamp cast a warm circle of light, a lodestar in the sea of uncertainty. The decision loomed over us like a storm cloud ready to burst. We have to think bigger than ourselves, Abby. This is about the integrity of history, the lives of countless others, I said, my voice a mere whisper but resolute nonetheless. Her agreement was a soft rustle, like the turning of a page in one of the many leather-bound books that surrounded me. Then we must act, Emily. I trust your judgment. Together, we'll set things right. The night waned as we orchestrated our plan, a meticulous blueprint that would either mend the torn edges of time or condemn us to an unknown fate. The whispers of the house grew silent, as if holding its breath, waiting for the moment of truth. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains as we put our plan into motion, each step taken with a mix of fear and hope. The consequences of our choice began to materialize, subtle at first, like the softest ripple in a still pond, then growing, reaching out to touch every corner of our existence. As the sun climbed higher, casting its rays upon the old house, the world around us began to shift, aligning with the echoes of what once was. The ethical divide that had tormented us was now behind us, our decision made. In that moment, standing at the threshold of the unknown, Abigail and I knew that the voyage beyond had reached its crescendo. We had faced the ethical paradoxes head-on, and though the future was uncertain, we were certain of one thing: our lives, our choices, would forever be entwined in the accounts of time. Chapter 13, The Pendulum Swings. As I, Emily, descended the grand staircase, the sound of the town's chatter reached my ears, a distant hum that grew louder with each step. The air was abuzz with more than just the day's gossip. It was the electric pulse of curiosity, of questions that demanded answers I wasn't ready to give. In the kitchen, the old iron kettle whistled atop the stove, a familiar sound amidst the growing chaos. I poured myself a cup of tea, the steam curling into the air like wraiths rising from the depths. The silence of the house was a stark opposition to the turmoil brewing just beyond its walls. Abby, the past is leaking into the present, and it's turning my world upside down, I said, my voice echoing against the tiled backsplash. It's like the pendulum of time has swung too far, and now it's all coming undone. From across the veil of years, Abigail's reply was tinged with concern. I know, Emily. I never meant for any of this to happen. The house, it's become a lantern, drawing the eyes of everyone in town. I sipped my tea, the warmth doing little to quell the unease that settled in my stomach. It's not just the house, it's me. They think I'm the cause of all this strangeness. The doorbell rang, a jarring sound that seemed too modern for the ancient dwelling. I set my cup down, the liquid still swirling, and made my way to the entrance. Peering through the stained glass, I could see Jack, his face a mask of curiosity and concern. I opened the door, greeted by the crisp autumn air and his searching gaze. Morning, Emily. You can't help but notice all the odd things happening around here, he said, his voice carrying the unspoken question that hung between us. I forced a smile, my mind racing for an explanation that wouldn't betray the incredible truth. Old houses have their quirks, Jack. You know how it is. He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. Sure, but this is more than just quirks, Emily. It's like history is coming alive around us. Before I could respond, a group of townsfolk appeared at the end of the driveway, their faces a mixture of fascination and fear as they stared at the house. It was clear the building had become more than a local oddity. It was now the center of a whirlwind of speculation. Jack, I began, but the words caught in my throat. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Emily, whatever's going on, I want to help. This is bigger than just you and me. The weight of his offer hung heavy in the air, a lifeline thrown across the chasm of the unknown. "I'll tell you everything, but you have to promise to keep an open mind," I said, the gravity of my own confession anchoring me to the spot. As I led him inside, the house seemed to watch us, its walls steeped in the echoes of a time long past. The conversation that followed was a marathon of revelations as I unveiled the incredible connection between Abigail and myself, the window through time that had become a doorway for the past to bleed into the present. Jack listened, his expression a tapestry of shock, disbelief, and a dawning understanding. "This is incredible, Emily. I can't believe it, but at the same time, I can't deny what's right in front of me." The townsfolk gathered outside, their murmurs growing louder as they peered at the windows, hungry for a glimpse of the impossible. Inside, Jack and I stood at the heart of the storm, the pendulum of time swinging wildly as we faced the amplification of conflict that threatened to tear our worlds apart. Chapter 14, In the Eye of the Storm. Jack stood beside me, his presence a steady force in the chaos that swirled around us. "So this is where it all happens, huh?" he asked, his eyes scanning the room with a mix of awe and disbelief. I nodded, my gaze fixed on the portrait of the house's original owner. "Yeah, this is ground zero, and we're not alone." I could feel the presence of the past pressing in, a weight on the very atmosphere of the room. The air shifted, and a chill spread through the room as the ghost of the original owner materialized before the fireplace. His form was translucent, flickering like a faulty projection, yet his eyes burned with a sharp intensity. "Interlopers," the ghost hissed, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You meddle with forces beyond your ken." Jack stepped forward, a frown creasing his brow. "We're not here to meddle. We just want to set things right." The ghost let out a low, rumbling laugh, the sound sending shivers down my spine. "Set things right? The window is mine to control. Through it, I command time itself." I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. "That's where you're wrong. The window doesn't belong to anyone. It's a part of this house, a part of history, and it's tearing our lives apart." Jack glanced at me, his eyes filled with determination. "We're closing the window once and for all." The ghost sneered, his form becoming more defined, more menacing. "Foolish mortals, you think you can outwit me? I've walked these halls for over a century." I stepped closer, my fortitude firm. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about all the lives you've affected, including ours. We won't let you control us." The room grew colder, the tension palpable as the ghost and I faced off. Jack's hand found mine, his grip lending me strength. Together, we stood united against the specter of the past. "You may have walked these halls for a century," I said, meeting the ghost's gaze, "but we live here now. It's time for you to move on." The ghost roared, a sound that shook the very foundations of the house. "You'll regret defying me." But Jack and I stood our ground. "It's over," I declared. "The window closes now." With those words, a bright light filled the room, emanating from the portrait as the ghost let out one final, ear-piercing wail. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light vanished, taking the ghost with it. The room returned to normal, the sunlight now gentle and warm. Jack and I let out a collective breath. The threat of the ghost vanquished, our future reclaimed. "We did it," Jack said, a smile breaking through the tension. "We actually did it." I smiled back, my heart lighter than it had been in ages. We did, together. In the eye of the storm, we had found our strength, our courage, and as we left the parlor hand in hand, I knew that the bond between Jack and me had grown stronger, forged in the fires of conflict and triumph. Chapter 15, Crossing the Threshold. Today was the day Emily and Abigail would dare to mend the rift, to seal the time window that had become a spectacle for the entire community. The eyes of the world were upon us, and the air was thick with expectation. Emily took a deep breath, the scent of ancient oak and a hint of lavender from the garden filling her lungs. "Abby, it's now or never. Are you ready?" Abigail's voice, always a flare of strength, wavered through the veil of time. "I am, Emily. Whatever it takes, we'll close this window. Our realities, our connection, it's all hanging in the balance." The grandfather clock in the corner ticked with the urgency of a beating heart, its hands inching toward the inevitable. Emily's gaze wandered over the room, the familiar setting that had become the stage for their extraordinary encounter. A hush fell over the house as the ghost of the original owner, the architect of the time window, appeared before them once more. His spectral form flickered like a candle in the wind, his eyes alight with a mix of defiance and desperation. "You cannot undo what I have wrought," the ghost intoned, his voice resonating with the power of one who had defied time itself. Jack stood beside Emily, his presence a silent vow of support. "We're not here to undo, but to repair. Your legacy won't be forgotten, but it can't continue this way." The ghost's ethereal laugh filled the room, sending a shiver down Emily's spine. "My legacy is this house, the window, the power to traverse the ages." Emily squared her shoulders, her resolve as solid as the wood beneath her feet. "Your legacy can be so much more. Help us fix this, and be remembered as a guardian, not a warden of time." The room seemed to hold its breath as the ghost considered her words, his form becoming less erratic, more contemplative. "What you ask? It's beyond comprehension." Abigail's voice joined the fray, clear and commanding. "We ask for a chance to make things right for all those affected, for the community that's been caught in the crossfire of our adventure." Outside, the townspeople gathered, their faces pressed against the window panes, their murmurs a mix of fear and fascination. The reality of temporal disturbances was no longer a tale to be whispered, but a truth to be witnessed. The ghost's gaze softened, the fight waning as he took in the faces beyond the glass. "To be a guardian," he mused, the idea taking root. Emily nodded, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Yes, to protect the flow of time, to ensure the legacy of this house as a sanctuary, not a battleground." A final confrontation unfolded, the ghost wrestling with the magnitude of his existence and the impact of his actions. Hidden truths spilled forth, the history of the house and its legacy unraveling before their eyes. In the end, it was the ghost who made the ultimate sacrifice, releasing his hold on the window and allowing Emily and Abigail to weave the final threads that would seal the breach. As the last remnants of the ghost faded into the morning light, the house exhaled, the tension dissipating like mist in the warmth of the sun. The connection between the two women, the thread that had bound them across centuries, grew fainter, yet their bond remained, a confirmation to their journey. Emily turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting the triumph and sorrow of their victory. The community, once grappling with the incomprehensible, now stood in awe of the courage and determination that had restored order to their world. Crossing the threshold, Emily whispered, the chapter of their lives marked by the voyage beyond drawing to a close. The time window was sealed, but the memories, the legacy of what they had accomplished, would echo through time, empowering others to believe in the impossible. Chapter 16, The Last Echo. "Abigail," I said, breaking the silence, "we're on the brink of something monumental." From across the chasm of time, her voice came through, clear and steady. "Yes, Emily, I can feel the window's pull waning. We're close to the last echo of its existence." I glanced at the artifact resting on the desk, an intricate locket that once belonged to Abigail. Its surface was etched with symbols that seemed to dance in the flickering light. "This locket, Abby, it's more than just a piece of jewelry, isn't it?" Her laugh, a gentle ripple across the centuries, filled the room. Indeed. It was my mother's and her mother's before her. It holds our family's legacy within its clasp. I ran my fingers over the cold metal, feeling the engravings as if they were braille telling a story only my fingers could read. It might just be the key to sealing the window for good. The sound of footsteps approached, and I turned to see Jack entering the library, his eyes alight with curiosity. "Morning, Emily. What's the plan for today?" I showed him the locket, its presence a silent testament to the bond Abigail and I shared. "We think this might close the window. Permanently." Jack leaned in, examining the locket with an impressed whistle. "That's some heirloom. Looks ancient. We need to figure out how it works," I said, turning the locket over in my hands. "There's a mechanism here, something that's been part of this house and its history." Together, we pored over the locket and the old texts, the light from the window casting long shadows on the walls. The conversation flowed freely, blending the past and present as Abigail and I shared insights, piecing together the family history that had intertwined with the very essence of the house. "Emily, there's an inscription here in the locket," Abigail observed. "It speaks of a binding, a promise to guard the passage through time." Jack's fingers traced the lines of text, his brow furrowed in concentration. A promise, huh? Looks like it's up to us to keep it. The day slipped by as we worked, the house creaking around us, an ancient giant rousing from slumber. The connection between Abigail and me grew stronger with each revelation, a silken thread spun from shared destiny. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, bathing the room in a warm, amber glow, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The locket sprang open, revealing a hidden compartment with a small, delicately folded piece of parchment. Jack and I unfolded it carefully, revealing a set of instructions, penned in a hand that spanned generations. Abigail, it's a ritual, something about aligning the house's energy. Abigail's voice was a mixture of excitement and solemnity. Then we must perform it together. It's the culmination of our journey, the act that will seal the window and bind our lives to this house forever. As the last echo of the day's light faded, we prepared for the ritual, the house standing silent and expectant. The locket lay open, its secrets bared, a bridge between my world and Abigail's. In the twilight of the library, with the locket's glow as our guide, Jack and I joined forces with a voice from the past, ready to cross the threshold into the unknown. Our choice would echo through time, a decision that would entwine our fates with the house and its legacy in a final act of unity. Chapter 17, Farewell to the Past. Abigail, are you ready for this? I asked, my voice echoing off the walls adorned with paintings from a time long past. Her response carried the weight of centuries. I am, Emily. The locket has been in my family for generations, and now it will serve its final purpose. Jack's footsteps approached from behind, his presence a solid comfort. I still can't believe this locket is the key to it all, he said, awe coloring his tone. I turned to face him, the locket glinting in the light. It's more than just a key, Jack. It's a symbol of hope, of the legacy this house will carry on. The sound of a distant clock chimed through the house, signaling the hour. We needed to act swiftly. The ghost, the original owner of the house, would not let us alter his plans without a fight. We made our way to the parlor, the room where the boundaries of time had grown thin. The air was charged with energy, the hairs on my arms standing on end as we entered. The ghost materialized before us, his form more menacing than ever. Fools, you think you can defy me? This house, the window, they are mine. Jack stepped forward, his jaw set. This house belongs to the future now, and we're here to protect that future. I held the locket out before me, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with power. Your time has passed. Let us go, and let this house stand as a beacon of hope, not a prison of the past. The ghost let out a howl, the air around us growing colder as he summoned the full extent of his spectral power. You cannot win. I will not be forgotten. Abigail's voice joined mine, her words a chant that seemed to resonate with the very foundations of the house. Together, we call upon the legacy of this locket, the promise it holds. Release us from your grasp. A blinding light filled the room, the locket's energy surging as the ghost's form began to waver. Jack and I held our ground, the power of the artifact and our united will pressing against the ghost's fury. Then, in an instant, the light receded and the ghost's form dissipated, his presence fading away with a final, resigned sigh. The house fell silent, the weight of years lifting from its shoulders. We stood in the aftermath, the locket now quiet in my hand. It's done, I breathed, relief flooding through me. Jack nodded, a smile breaking through. You did it, Emily. You both did it. The legacy of the house was now secure, its history a story of triumph over the chains of time. Through our efforts, Abigail and I had not only preserved our own realities, but had given the house a new purpose. Farewell to the past, I said softly, knowing that the future was now ours to write. The house, once a vessel of temporal storms, now stood as a symbol of hope, an instrument to the unyielding human spirit that endures beyond the passage of time. Chapter 18, Dawn of a New Day. As the sun climbed higher, its beams illuminating the intricate wallpaper and the polished wood of the antique furniture, I felt the presence of Abigail, though less pronounced than before, now a gentle whisper in the fabric of the house. Abby, can you hear me? I asked, my voice a blend of hope and wistfulness. Her reply was a soft caress against the edges of my consciousness. I'm here, Emily. Different, but here. Our decision. It's like waking from a dream. I walked over to the window, pulling the curtains aside to let the full light of day wash over the room. It's a beautiful morning. The house, it feels different, more at peace. Jack entered the room, a clipboard in hand, his eyes surveying the changes. Well, the town is buzzing. They're calling what happened here a miracle. Can't say I disagree. I smiled at him, the bond we'd forged over the past events, a strong thread between us. It's more than that, Jack. It's history, alive and breathing, and we're going to share it with the world. He nodded, jotting down notes. The Historical Society is on board. They're ready to help you turn this place into a center of learning. Abigail's laughter was a distant chime. A center of learning. That's more than I could have ever imagined for this place. I paced the room, my thoughts turning to the future. We'll tell the story of the house, of us, and of the window that once bridged time. People will come from all over to learn and to wonder. Jack looked up from his notes, his gaze meeting mine. And what about us, Emily? After everything, where do we stand? I stopped, considering his question. The memories we'd shared, the trials we'd faced, they had changed us both. We stand on the threshold of a new era, Jack. Together, we'll make sure the legacy of this house lives on. As we spoke, the sounds of the town waking up drifted through the open windows, a symphony of life moving forward. The timelines had stabilized, the past and present meshing into a tapestry of continuity. Emily, Abigail's voice was a gentle nudge. Remember, no matter what happens, we've made history. We've touched the stars and come back to tell the tale. I took a deep breath, the air fresh with the scent of blooming flowers from the garden. We have, Abby, and we'll make sure everyone knows it. The Hartford house, once a mysterious relic, was now a pharos of knowledge, its story a captivating hymn to the power of human connection across time. As I rededicated the house, a crowd gathered, their faces alight with curiosity and awe. The pinnacle of our discovery had been reached, but the journey was far from over. The bond that Abigail and I had formed was indelible, a lasting impact that would resonate through the ages, inspiring all who crossed the threshold of the house that had once been a passage to the unseen. Chapter 19, Aftershocks. Jack, with his ever-present notepad, leaned against the door frame, his eyes scanning the room that had seen so much. This place, it's changed, Em. You can feel it, the peace. I nodded, my gaze drifting over the parlor, where the sunlight highlighted the contours of the grand piano, a family heirloom silent in the corner. It's like the house itself is taking a long, deep breath. Abigail's voice, now a gentle murmur in my mind, joined our morning ritual. Peace. It's a strange sensation after all we've been through. The kettle in the kitchen began to whistle, its shrill sound a familiar call to the start of the day. I headed towards it, feeling the smooth wooden planks under my feet, each one a testimony to the house's enduring legacy. As I poured the steaming water into the teapot, Jack's voice broke the comfortable silence. The town's talking, Em. They're calling it the miracle of Hartford House. They want to know how, they want to know why. I carried the teapot back to the parlor, the aroma of the tea blending with the scent of old books and history. They're looking for answers in a world that now believes in the impossible. Jack chuckled, a hint of admiration in his voice. Can't blame them. You and Abigail, you've shattered what we all thought we knew about reality. I set the teapot down on the table, the delicate china clinking softly. We've opened their minds, but now we're stewards of that knowledge. It's a hefty responsibility. Abigail's laughter was like a soft echo from another room. Stewards of knowledge, guardians of history. It has a nice ring to it, wouldn't you say, Emily? The conversation flowed as naturally as the river that wound its way through the town, our words painting a picture of a future filled with potential. The world outside was adjusting, coming to terms with the aftershocks of our actions, the ripples of belief that had spread far and wide. Jack flipped through his notepad, his brow furrowing. The Historical Society wants to amend the records to tell the true story of this house and its journey. I smiled, a sense of pride swelling within me. Good. It's time the Hartford house was known for what it really is, a guidepost of hope, a testimony to the power of connection. As we sipped our tea, the sun climbing higher with each passing moment, I realized that the aftershocks of our voyage beyond were just beginning to be felt. Our story was now etched in the log of time, a narrative that would inspire generations to come. And though the window had closed, the bond between Abigail and me endured, a lasting impact that transcended the boundaries of time, an everlasting echo of a friendship forged in the heart of the unseen passage. Chapter 20, Imprints of the Unseen. Abigail, I called out, my eyes scanning the rows of ancient books that lined the shelves, each spine a soldier standing guard over the secrets they contained. Yes, Emily? Her voice was a soft hum, a soothing presence in the still, charged air of the room. The world, it's changing. They're calling it the Hartford phenomenon. People everywhere are trying to find other windows like ours, I said, my fingers tracing the grain of the oak desk, feeling the dips and curves of the wood like it was a map of our adventure. Abigail's laughter tinkled through the air, a sound that belonged to another era. Imagine that, Emily. Our little secret, now a buoy for scientific inquiry and wonder. Just then, a knock on the door broke the quiet. I stood and crossed the room, opening it to reveal Jack, his face etched with the anticipation of the new day's challenges. Morning, Emily. The Society of Temporal Studies is here. They're eager to meet the guardian of the past, he said, stepping into the room, his gaze sweeping across the artifacts we had gathered. I let out a soft sigh, the weight of fame and responsibility settling on my shoulders. It's all so overwhelming, Jack. To think that my connection with Abigail would lead to this. Jack offered a warm, encouraging smile. You're doing great, Emily. Abigail's legacy, it's inspiring people, especially young women who see you both as pioneers. The conversation flowed as we walked through the halls of the house, the morning light casting a warm glow on the portraits that adorned the walls. We spoke at length about the society that had formed in the wake of our discovery, a group dedicated to uncovering the mysteries of time and the potential for other windows like the one in the Hartford house. Abigail, you're more than just a voice from the past now. You're a symbol, a trailblazer for a whole new generation, I said, a swell of pride rising in my chest. Her voice was tinged with humility. I only wish I could see it, Emily, to witness the impact we've had. As we entered the grand parlor, now converted into a meeting space, the members of the Society of Temporal Studies turned to greet us. Their faces were alight with curiosity, each mind teeming with questions and theories about the unseen passage and the imprints it had left on our world. The dialogue that ensued was a tapestry of scientific terms and historical references, a lengthy exchange of ideas and possibilities. Together, we navigated the repercussions of our actions, the reality of temporal windows, and the connection that Abigail and I had forged across time. As the meeting drew to a close, I felt a sense of accomplishment. The Hartford house, once a silent sentinel of history, was now alive with the voices of those who sought to understand the unseen. And through it all, Abigail's legacy continued to resonate, her spirit a guiding light for the guardians of the past and the pioneers of the future. Chapter 21, Reflections Through Time. From the worn wooden bench, I gazed at the house, its windows reflecting the world outside and the legacies contained within. Abigail, do you remember the first time we spoke? I called out, my voice mingling with the chirps of the morning birds. Her reply, now a whisper carried on the wind, was as clear as it had been in those days when time itself bowed to our connection. How could I forget, Emily? It was the beginning of something extraordinary. Jack, with his thoughtful eyes and easy smile, approached from the path, his boots leaving soft imprints on the dew-kissed grass. Morning, Emily. This place, it's become a part of history now. I nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. It has, and so have we. The window's legacy, it's woven into the very fabric of our lives and the society that now looks to us for answers. As I stood, my hands brushed against the petals of the nearest rosebush, their delicate texture a reminder of the fragility and strength of our shared experience. Abigail's voice carried a note of nostalgia. I often find myself reflecting on our adventures, the challenges we embraced. It's strange, being a part of history, yet apart from the world that continues beyond my time. Jack sat beside me, his presence a reassuring anchor. You both changed the world, showed us that the impossible could be real. That's something to be proud of. The house, with its echoing halls and secret whispers, stood as a living testament to the enduring power of connection, a symbol that reached beyond the confines of time. Abigail, even though we're separated by time once more, the echoes of what we shared, they'll never fade, I said, my voice steady and sure. Her laughter was a soft sound that seemed to rise from the very heart of the house. No, they won't. We're forever a part of each other's stories, bound by the journey that brought us together. I turned to Jack, a smile on my lips. We've found closure and a new sense of purpose, haven't we? He nodded, his eyes reflecting the deep blue of the sky. We have. And this house, it'll continue to inspire curiosity and wonder for generations to come. As we spoke, the sun climbed higher, its light a warm embrace that wrapped around the house and its gardens. The Hartford house, once a conduit for the voyage beyond, now stood as a warning of hope and discovery, a place where the past and present merged into a single, beautiful reflection through time. And in that moment, with the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of the day's first visitors, I knew that the legacy of the window and the bond Abigail and I had formed would resonate through the ages, a timeless reminder of the unbreakable threads that connect us all. Chapter 22, The Legacy of the Threshold. Jack joined me, his hands tucked into the pockets of his worn denim jeans, a look of contented accomplishment on his youthful face. You know, Emily, this place is going to be something special. People will come from all over just to feel a part of the history we made here. I nodded, my gaze lingering on the intricate carvings of the porch railing, each groove an evidence to the craftsmanship of a bygone era. It's more than history, Jack. It's a legacy of the threshold we crossed, of the bond that Abigail and I formed beyond time. The sun crested the hills, bathing the house in golden light, the shadows of night retreating like the echoes of our adventure. The front door creaked open, and a group of eager visitors stepped onto the porch, their faces alight with curiosity. Miss Hartford, said a woman with a notepad, her sharp eyes scanning every detail of the facade. Could you tell us more about the window you and Abigail discovered? How did it change your lives? I leaned against the railing, the wood solid beneath my hands. It taught us that time is more than just seconds and hours. It's a tapestry woven with the threads of our experiences. Abigail and I, though separated by centuries, found a friendship that defied the ages. The visitors hung on every word, their imaginations ignited by the tale of two women connected by the unseen passage that had once bridged the gap between their worlds. Jack chuckled softly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. They're going to eat up every word, Emily. You and Abigail, you're like characters out of a storybook now. The laughter of children echoed from the garden, where the scent of fresh earth and blossoming flowers mingled with the whispers of the past. We may be like characters from a storybook, but our story is very real, and it's one I hope will inspire others to seek out their own thresholds, their own voyages beyond. The group nodded, their expressions a blend of awe and reverence as they prepared to explore the house, now a historic site that stood as a warning of discovery. As the day unfolded, the house came alive with the footfalls of visitors and the murmur of voices discussing the possibilities of time travel and the mysteries of the universe. And in the midst of it all, Abigail's voice, a gentle echo in my mind, reminded me of the unbreakable bond we shared. Emily, no matter where we are in time, we'll always have the journey we shared, the leaps of faith we took together, she said, her words a comfort that transcended the ages. I looked out over the land, the rolling hills, a canvas of green and gold, and knew that the legacy of the Hartford house was secure. The threshold we had crossed had led us not only to answers, but to a deeper understanding of the connections that bind us all. As the final chapter of the unseen passage drew to a close, I realized that the bond between Abigail and me would endure, a lasting imprint on the fabric of both our lives, forever a part of the incredible story that had unfolded within these walls. The legacy of the threshold, the voyage beyond, was now complete. The end. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed The Unseen Passage. Please smash that like button, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily storytelling adventures.